Well, this one's going to be fun. It's been a minute since we have caught up with our old friend, the legendary Pete Carroll, the only head coach in Seahawks existence to deliver a Super Bowl victory. Now, of course, with the Las Vegas Raiders. But we get an opportunity to hear from him today in an environment that's a lot less structured, a lot less formal, and a lot more fun, we can assume, than we usually get to see him speak in. He made an appearance yesterday on the Get Got pod, which if you've never heard of it and you've never watched it, you should. Definitely, those guys don't need any help, but get over there and give them a thumbs up and a subscription. It's Marshawn Lynch and Mike Robinson on their own podcast, and it's been one of the most refreshing additions to the podcast world, I believe, in the last few months. And so I haven't watched it. I've heard there's some really tasty morsels in this one where he does reflect back, as you would think that he would, with two former players on his time as head coach in Seattle. And so we're going to go through this. I'm going to do one of my blind reactions to it, pause it from time to time, giving my thoughts on things that he said, and just enjoy it together. And if you're watching during the live premiere, then we also get to do the live chat and react to it together as well. Pete Carroll. Well, I wish I could announce this truly that he was going to be on the show. But Pete Carroll on the Get Got pod coming up next on Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
All right, you guys, welcome to another episode of Seahawks Forever. We are going to jump right into this. The only thing I'm going to ask you to do before we get started, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Best way to support what I do, you can hit that thumbs up to like the video as well. All right, here we go. As you can tell, Mike Robinson, Marshawn Lynch, teaming up on Pete, sandwiching him right there in the middle. I've fast-forwarded it through their intro and some teasers and stuff. So let's get right into this, shall we?
He was at USC from 2001 to 2009, went 97 and 19, beast. What a bunch of Pac-10 titles. Beat up on you a few times, I know that. At Seattle, 137, 89, and 1. He had a tie, which was part of set.
So hold on.
Well,
This makes me wonder, right off the bat, if NIL had existed when Pete was coaching in college, would he still be there? Would he have just stayed at USC? Like, the reason he ended up, looking elsewhere is because of that whole Reggie Bush thing and whether or not he was getting some enhancements and some financial, enticements to stay at USC or to go there in the first place. Like, that wouldn't be an issue now. Like, Reggie's gotten his Heisman back even. They're trying to go back and reverse history. But I wonder, like, he was able... I don't think that would faze him the way it did with Nick Saban, and eventually caused him to decide to get out of it altogether because he didn't like that part of the game. Pete had been in the NFL. He had seen paid players. I wonder. I just wonder if he would have made that move and maybe he would still be at USC today and they wouldn't be what they were. Maybe the Pac-12 would still be together. See, like, all of this stuff happened because Pete yet left USC. It's his fault.
One of them losses came from us too, though.
one of them losses came for Cows.
I mean, it was the year before I got there, but I was at the game, so I counted.
Hold up. Let me finish before we let Coach talk. All right. One of 3 coaches to win a Super Bowl and college football national title. Pete Carroll, welcome to the Get Got Show, big dog.
God, he looks good, doesn't he? I hope I can maintain myself half as well as he has.
Coach, what's happening, man? What, was this your plan the whole time? You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. Holla at your boy, man.
I never said I retired.
Man, I know something
True,
about
he didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, that's right.
He never said he was retired. He did say something to the effect, though, I think it was in his final press conference, or maybe it was one of the radio interviews right after he was fired, that he didn't think that opportunity was going to be there for him. And I think this was just very rational thinking on his part, that he thought he was too old, that the league had passed him by. They were all about the younger coaches. He didn't think that opportunity would be there. Maybe in that moment he believed that, but certainly after he had some time away and then he was able to get some feedback from teams, Here we are again.
That's right. I wasn't sure. I didn't know. I was not finished coaching.
What's with the bearskin?
I wasn't. I didn't know how that would come up again. I was anxious to kind of see what would happen. And so as the end middle.
Is he on vacation, or is this one of his homes? Is he a hunter? Like, when does he have time to hunt? Is he a taxidermy guy? Or is that not his house? Interesting.
To the end of the season started rolling around, wheels started turning a little bit, and I started making a call here or there just to figure out what was going on. Yeah, and there was a little bit of interest, college too, a little bit. There was some stuff going on back and forth. And the more I got around it,
Will we ever find out which college teams may have been interested in Pete Carroll? Interesting.
More I felt the passion growing, and it was, so I was really, the way I would say it is, I was in.
WSU had an opening this offseason. I'm just saying, maybe before they hired Jimmy Rogers, they reached out to Pete.
The pursuit of the passion of this thing, and it's never been nothing but fun. So it just, fortunately, it worked out. A couple crazy things happened right around the end of it, and but the Raiders thing, when Tom joined up, that really made a difference to me, and that kind of shifted my gears a little bit. And then when I learned about the ownership that had come on, that Mark had hired, and with his new guys and all that, there was a whole energy about it that really seemed like it fit, and they were kind of fired up about me doing it. And so it was a pretty easy decision in that case. I knew nothing about going to the desert or Vegas or any of that stuff. And hadn't thought about it.
You did.
Yeah. But anyway, so it got jumping pretty good. Really, in the last couple of days, Sean called me up and said, "Hey, what's going on with this? I'm starting to hear some talk or whatever." He's giving me a hard time late at night. Of course, he called me about 11:30 at night.
You call him that late. I think that's what he do his best work.
Yo, it's going down Sunday, June 22nd. Catch me, Mike Robinson, and my brother.
So you got to forgive me for the ads, but they did say at the beginning, as I was fast forwarding, like, you can go subscribe to their podcast, actually become a paid subscriber, and then you get ad free and all the profanity, like unedited, all that kind of stuff. So, God, I am fascinated by the fact that college programs reached out to him, which I mean, I guess it makes sense. He likes to mold men, and he would have been a guy that would have been unfazed by all the NIL stuff. All right, let's see here if we can get past this a little bit. All right, here we are.
I don't know what we had going on, but I remember it was maybe it had to have been 2:00 in the morning, which now kind of make sense because you was over, back across the way, which gave you a little time difference. But I remember getting a call and, we was talking so much, and I'm like, man, nah, you wait, hold on. You want what? We had to talk about contracts. You said, you're not Adrian Peterson.
Oh, he said that. What? Oh.
He went in. You're not Adrian Peterson. You're not.
You had to draw the man.
I was I'm like, hey, man, it's lucky for you that you ain't in negotiations with them right now and you in negotiations with me. But we gonna figure this out. Yeah. I was like, man, I look like, just call me at 2 a.m. and he said, you ain't Adrian Peterson. You ain't Chris Johnson.
Oh, he named all the backs.
Oh, man, he was going down the list because everybody was just getting their bag at the time.
He's talking, so this threw me. I thought they made a hard shift from talking about Pete being interested in coming back to coaching. So I thought that's what they were talking about as far as the late night phone call goes. But no, this was when Marshawn was trying to get a new deal. This is Pete being straight up real with him. You're not Adrian Peterson. You're not Chris Johnson. Wow. Pete cold-blooded.
That's how we.
Why you get at him like that, Coach? What you was trying to do? You just trying to let him know, hey man, we just trying to, it's a business thing.
I was trying to rough him up before you rough me up.
That's how it is, man. Look, Coach.
I had no idea what was going on.
Coach knows this, but Beast, I do my NBC thing in the falls, and there was a couple times I was up at Washington, had a chance to say what's up to Coach. Coach, just talk about that year being off, and you were up in Washington with your son. Brendan was up there being the offensive coordinator. How did that experience keep the hunger, there for you? Just being around young people, being around, the college athletes again. How did that year with Washington, or kind of in that realm, help you come to the decision to be a head coach again?
That was just really one part of the off season, but it was a good part of it because I got to, hang close. I went to practice a handful of times and kind of hung around and just so I could keep track of what's going on, what Jed was doing, what Belichick was doing on defense, just for fun, but it kept me close. And it was really following my grandson playing in high school. That was a total great time. I had so much fun with that. And then Nate was coaching at the Panthers, and Dave Canales was coaching out there, and DQ's doing his thing in Washington. So I had a bunch of guys that I got to watch and stay in touch with. And really, the perspective that you're luckily handed when you don't coach is to see things totally differently. It's so much clearer that during the season. It's hard to evaluate the game. You're just battling, But this was a year like my last time I sat out, where so much happened, and it was just like I was being handed insights throughout the year about different things that I saw in the game that I liked, didn't like, things that I would like to do differently and better. I got motivated in a different way. To teach a little bit. Does
this sound familiar? Like, he's had a couple of opportunities in his career to step away and reevaluate and see things differently. Obviously, when he was fired by the Patriots, he stepped away and he talks about before he went to USC, if you've read his book, like completely reevaluating everything, the way that he plans practice, just his philosophy, his mission statement. Think Jerry Maguire and his manifesto, right? Like, he just sort of dialed in everything he wanted to be and decided that he ever got an opportunity to coach again, that he wouldn't do so unless he was in a program that allowed him the freedom and the autonomy to do things exactly as he wanted them done. USC gave him that autonomy. There were other organizations that came along the way. I think the Arizona Cardinals were interested at one point. I know the Atlanta Falcons one year, maybe it was 1 or 2 years before he was hired by the Seahawks, had interest, but he wasn't satisfied that they were going to give him that kind of freedom. Paul Allen and Todd Lightwicki at the time did. And so now here's another opportunity in his life, much later than anyone would have expected, where he gets to step away again, kind of watch football, enjoy football for the first time in a while. Think about things differently. Think about how things ended in Seattle and how he might do it if he got to start up again. And then he got that opportunity by the Raiders.
Better, to approach things differently with my coaches so that they could teach and coach better. There was just a whole laundry list of things that kept coming. And so I was getting excited about it because I was pissed off about so many things we didn't do right. We could have done better. It bugged the heck out of me. But so all of that just kind of fueled it, and it just kind of fueled the excitement about returning. And then, but it really is a totally different perspective than when you're in the midst of the game plans and you don't get to see the game. And so it happened, way back after the New England years. I set out that one year and got my act together, got my philosophy together, got the way I could best express where I was coming from and all that. And then the next thing that happened was USC.
Yeah.
After I go to USC, and the rest, to me, I don't even mind saying it. The rest was history.
Why's Pete got to plagiarize my points?
Where I found the clarity to step away and find myself more so, and so this year was different, but it was similar in that I gained a ton of information that I'm unloading right now on the fellas as we're doing it.
Yeah. So let me ask you something though, because you hear about like all the great coaches, like, oh yeah, these guys come from the Parcell tree. They come from the Belichick.
He got a tree, Pete Carroll got a
That's
tree.
Damn, Mike.
What? I'm just saying.
You still want a Debo. Just because you got that
just get
do-rag
along.
on.
Jeez.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, to see all the guys
What is that over Marshawn's right shoulder there behind his arm? Is that a bottle of tequila?
that came from, because I just look around and I run into coaches, like look at Salah, like Dave Canales like, bro, this the that used to hold the cards. Like, man, you drew the damn card wrong, and now you feel me? They got their own. And it's like, damn, they all came from your nuts, though. You feel me? Like, these your kids, these your seeds. Like, these my nuts out there that I'm spreading through this thing. You feel me? Like,
we don't have to be talking about your nuts.
well, I mean, I feel like I raised them too, though. You feel what I'm saying?
I mean, in a way.
I'm like, damn, look at these dudes. And then, you know what I mean? So how I mean, that year off and you looking around like.
I will say this, and there was a viral video that went out. Was it his last year with Seattle where there was a big celebration in the locker room afterwards? I think it was a big comeback win. I can't remember the game. Sorry, maybe one of you can remind me, where he was caught. I think the Seahawks sent this out. It was like video from in the locker room where you could tell he was dropping F-bombs. He always catches himself. He always says freaking or whatever. But I'll never forget the 1 year that Matt Hasselbeck was here, Pete's first year in Seattle, 2010. And, you know, he comes across as this guy that you wonder if he does swear, right? I mean, I just assume all NFL coaches do, even if they come from a religious background. But I remember an interview Hasselbeck did where he was talking about that he thought that too until this one meeting. It was probably on a Monday or Tuesday right after a game where he lit into the team and maybe even Matt specifically, and it was profanity laden and it was hardcore. The point being that he was a different coach behind closed doors than what he presented himself to the public. And so, yeah, he's certainly, that's why he's able to handle so gracefully Marshawn talking about his nuts.
Damn, look at all my kids. They out here doing that. Like, man, hold on, man. I might have to get back in here and Pops might have to show him what's really going on. Like,
well, I can't lie to you, man. It was something like that. It was sitting back and watching, and I'm cheerleading and all that, but I was not removed from it. You know, I was just in a different place. And I was talking to David all year long and you know, talking to Danny.
And Geno, apparently, we know that now, right? He was in constant contact with Geno Smith.
And, you know, talking to our guys, because I kind of keep track with everybody as best I can, you know, and for those guys, just to be available if they've got questions, they got thoughts, they got whatevers, you know. And I'm not expecting that I got any jewels of wisdom for them. I just want to support them and love them up as they're going through it. But it was my gift. They gave the gift to me to kind of just stay with them, you know. And so, you know, and what happened, and what you guys know too, because we've been through this together. And when we go through this thing togetger, you know, there's a connection that's made that doesn't fall away. It doesn't go apart unless you're talking to Earl or something like that. You know, maybe Earl.
damn, you really threw that in there.
You really threw that in there,
Hey,
huh,
man,
Coach?
you gonna get
You
up
just
off
throw that in there
ET,
real
dog.
quick, like we ain't want teammates with him. You know what I'm saying?
You gonna get up off of ET, man.
I love
Man,
Earl.
that's my
I
brother,
still love
man.
Earl. He doesn't love me. You know,
But look, man, I knew you was something serious when I seen.
That breaks my heart a little bit. I had assumed, I guess, even though Pete's not here anymore, that Earl came back for a draft event, like a public event here. And I thought, okay, cool. Like, this is Earl trying to mend some fences and get back in the good graces of the Seahawks organization and repair some of those, you know, some of those breaks. And so I guess I just, in my head, assumed that he would do that with Pete too. But that was unprompted. That was Pete just throwing out there like that there's still a lot of love lost between Earl and Pete, and that middle finger that he threw up, which I have never, ever excused Earl for. They're just absolutely 100% in the wrong that he was in that moment. I understand the frustration, I guess, and that's just the way he was wired. And in some ways you could say, well, that's why he was such a great player, because he played with that chip on his shoulder. But he had been made a very rich man twice by the Seahawks. And I just thought that whole situation was really messed up on his part. So Pete's probably saying this because he's hurt. Let's hope that the two of them, maybe this will even be an impetus for it, right? Maybe as Marshawn is saying, maybe Earl will reach out to him. He will give him a call and they'll be able to hash it out a little bit because it'd be a shame if they didn't.
Brick, where Brick was at? Brick was just
with San Fran.
He's at the Jets. at the Jets.
Brick, I said, man, hold on. They let Brick in this. I said, yeah, okay, well.
Brick was a good coach. Brick was always a good coach.
I mean, maybe because I played against him more.
Played against him, yeah.
So I mean, it's like, to see that, but knowing that they came from that tree, it's like, oh yeah, you was serious with the.
Yeah.
And then
let me say this, guys. One of the things that happens now is with you see the new guys get a chance to be a head coach and first time opportunities and all that, and it don't work out very well for the most part. And it didn't work out for me either. I got bounced at the Jets after 1 year. I got bounced 3 years after being at New England. We were winning. We were 27-21 after 3. We went to the playoffs twice, and I still got fired. But I didn't have my act together. I didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't. And not until I sat out that year between New England and SC did I get my act in order so that I could have a philosophy. And my point is that for the new guys that try, they don't know what they're getting into. There's no way you can get ready for it. There's nothing that prepares you for it until you do it and you realize what you don't know and how much you don't know.
I cannot ever get enough of listening to Pete talk about this, because here he is. What is he now? 72, 73 years old. And he's still talking about the thirst for knowledge, the thirst for just better functionality, efficiency, how to be a better teacher, like how to learn new concepts and new ideas, being open-minded. That's what great leaders do. Great leaders have to exhibit this delicate balance, and this applies to coaches, of ego, right? They have to know they're really good and they have to believe in what they do, but also enough humility to know what you don't know, as he mentioned, and understand that the game changes, times change. You have to either change with them or try to get ahead of them in order to maintain greatness. And that's, I think there were some things there near the end of his Seahawks tenure where it just seemed like the game got away from him and he was behind the curve. And so maybe that year to reset, I can't wait to see what he does with the Raiders. But I appreciate this mindset so much because I'm a guy that is not getting any younger. I'm hitting a big milestone in October this year of turning another age. And yet I still feel like I'm getting started. I still feel like I'm looking for, just when it comes to the show, like how can I be more efficient? How can I communicate better? How can I make the product look better? How can I select topics that are more compelling on a more consistent basis? Already thinking ahead to like how I'm going to handle training camp. And if I do get credentialed, like how I'm going to execute all of that, like already reading things and talking to other people about their experiences. And so the fact that he's 70 something years old with everything that he's accomplished, it would not surprise me or disappoint me if he just rested on his laurels and said, I do things the way I do things. And if they work, they work. He's not doing that. And I think that's a really, really valuable lesson that anyone should listen to. If we had some of that in other areas of what's going on in the world and the country right now, this world would be a lot better place.
And so the clubs and coaches, and they all struggle with the new guys coming on. I mean, David Canales really had, he'd been with me for 14 years. He had the language of an approach, whether it was him or not. He had an approach that he could stand by and at least govern the decisions and the choices and the confrontations and all that stuff. That's what the new guys, they don't know, and it's not their fault. It wasn't my fault either. I just didn't know. And so, it's to come back now, after redoing it a couple times, this doesn't seem hard now, man. This is freaking fun.
You 100 years old, goddammit.
It's just rolling it out, and watching it happen. It's really, really been special.
Well, to that point, Coach, you've done this a long time, man, right? You've had an opportunity to fail a few times and still be able to come back, win championships, all of those things. Now you're back in the league. I can assume you're sitting in rooms where maybe everybody doesn't have the wealth of experience as you do. You know what I'm saying? How do you govern that though? Like, it's almost like you know some of the answers to the tests, right? But you also know shared experiences have to be gone through together, right? So everybody can learn and get to a point to where you are now. How do you govern that in the moments when you may feel you have an answer to a problem, but yet you do know that, you got to delegate so that people can learn what they can do on their own, so to speak. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. There's a lot of depth to the thinking that goes into this, because where in one regard, I want these guys to grow and learn from their own experiences, but yet I ain't got time to wait for them either, and so I have to find the way to communicate with them in a way that continues to support them and build them up, but yet make sure that they stay within guidelines that keep us in a philosophical vein and stay on track and on course. And so, like with Chip Kelly, this guy's been around, he's coached all over the place. He's been a head coach a number of times. He's been highly successful and all. And he's got an incredible brain, and his office is right next to mine for a reason. We need to be sharing our experiences as we go through this. But what I'm really doing is I'm supporting them in every way that I can, but yet I'm also, I'm feeding them, the little gems that, to keep them in touch with what we stand for and how we operate. And it's not the same as he's done it, so, but he's been marvelous about it. He's been really open and easy to communicate with and all that. Patrick Graham, on the other side of it, Patrick is a younger coach, but he's been a coordinator for 6 years in the league. He'd been through a lot he's from the Belichick upbringing, and so we come, a widespread of difference in our way of looking at things and treating people and all that. And so that's been a little bit different, that relationship. So, and then it feeds right on down through the coaches. What I have to do is do a freaking awesome job of just kicking ass in every step of the way and everything, so that we can stay on course and keep getting positive and all, and doing the right things to build. Like we had 3 phase threes this past week. And on the last day of the week, we had a competition between offensive and defensive coordinators. We had a scrimmage in essence, where they had to call defenses and offenses against themselves, and so I got to see, what's happened in this first couple months we've been together, kind of how it first shows itself. And, of course, when I mentioned to the team in the meeting that we're going to, hey, we're going to have a first OCDC competition. Of course, they start, shootout, so I got Chip Kelly shooting against Patrick Graham, up in front of the meeting, and it just added, led to a really good day. But my point is that this is it's a race. It's a race to get everything together and to get really clean and sharp. And you got to get really good at something before you can get good at 2 things, and so we just have to keep battling, and I have to keep the quality control of that throughout the process. And I don't, I miss stuff. I don't do it as well as I want to, but I've got to be totally active and interactive with everybody to give us our best shot to do it the way I picture it and dream it to be, and so it's really, really fun. It's fun as hell, because this is as much fun as you can have in coaching, putting it together like this. And so fortunately, the guys are doing great, and they're putting up with me, and I'm driving them crazy. And, I've been going, man. I've been going. I was bleeding on the practice field on
because you do too much sometimes.
I don't know what happened. I hooked somebody or something, you
be doing too much, coach.
First of all, shout out to Glenna, his wife, little appearance from her there in the background. Love hearing him talk about this stuff, because I had thought that if he had stayed here, this would have been a necessary step for him to make. And then when he got the job in Vegas, my first thought was good for him, really happy for him, want to see him succeed. My second thought was, I hope he understands. We talk about evolution and reevaluating, right? Recalibrating, maybe changing your approach. At this point in his career, I'd really hoped that he would be prepared to step back and take a more CEO style approach to the head coach job. And I thought during the process, we saw some signs that he was ready to do this by hiring Chip Kelly, someone who had the experience he just laid out. That's not going to be an offensive coordinator that's going to want to be held under a thumb and told what to do all the time, right? He's going to want to implement his philosophy. He has to sell Pete Carroll on that philosophy. But then once he's in the building, he has to be able to feel like he's in control. On the defensive side of the ball, that needed to be the case as well, I felt. That's where things fell apart the last couple of years, where he just kept he was behind the curve, and he kept trying to catch up and change his scheme and bring in new people to influence it. And then it was just this mishmash of ideas, and it was outside his comfort zone, and you saw what the result was on the field. Patrick Graham is a very, very highly respected defensive coordinator for 6 years, as Pete had said. He was a finalist, got 2 interviews for the Seattle job. You saw me have a Raiders reporter on the show, Hondo Carpenter, I think is his name, off the top of my head. And he talked about at the time how highly respected Patrick Graham was and how he did really well in his interviews, and the Seahawks really liked him. And so by retaining him, keeping him on staff, I thought was a huge step for Pete. Now, can he keep his hands off and let Patrick Graham coach his defense the way that he wants to? Obviously, Pete's going to have input, but kind of just let him go and be the CEO, be the culture guy. That's why I thought it was such a great hire for the Raiders. They'd had such a problem hiring the right head coaches and then keeping them hired, having enough success to keep them around, that I thought that would be the great next step in his career. And it sounds like here in June anyway, that's the approach.
You know what I'm saying? You got to calm down, man. You're in your 70s, bro. Relax.
No, I don't. I'm not in anything. I'm not in anything.
Coach Paterno told me the worst invention was the calendar. You know what I'm saying? He told me that before he passed away back in the day. But here's my question, man. Because I remember when I first got to Seattle, I remember sitting in your office with John, and you guys sat, me and actually Leon Washington, down at the same time and was like, yo, this is how we want this team built. You know, these are our core principles. We're going to need guys like yourself to, like, you know, be saying the same type of stuff in the locker room as well. You've been a lot of different places. Like, the Raiders ain't like the Raiders been to a lot of championships as of late. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you
They sure have.
how do you come in and completely change your culture? Because, and I've said this to him before, he ain't gonna be upset. Well, he might, I don't know. In the past, I've looked at Raiders like that's been the graveyard for careers. You know what I mean? Because it hadn't been a lot of winning. Sorry, Beast. I love you, bro. Not you, but I love you. So my thing is, like, how you do it, man? Because that's tough, bro.
Well, I'll tell you, the first thing we did in the very first meeting is I said, okay, you guys have a perspective on, you know, how times have been here and kind of how you see things. And I bet most of you are sitting in the exact same seat you were sitting in when you left. I said, get up and change your freaking seat. Let's go. Everybody take a new look at this thing. So everybody had to get up out of their seats and sit in a new place. And if I did that when Marshawn was there, he wouldn't have moved. No. Okay, he just sat in the same seat. Yeah, he'd have stepped over, then he'd have sat back in the same seat. But I'm watching. I was watching, you know. I want to see who,
and Pete would have let it happen.
I want to know. And but the point is that we just had to leave everything in the past. It's no different than going from a 1 year to the next, from a championship season or a struggling season to the next one. How are you going to do it?
That's what Glenn is just. Is that Glenna? She's just going to sit and chill in the background. All right, cool.
Is to start new and start fresh and give them a new outlook and really be willing to be different at everything. We painted the hallways and the building and some of the meeting rooms and stuff like that, just to change the colors. There was so much black in the hallways. It was like you're in a freaking cave, you know. And so we lightened it up a little bit so we get a little bit more silver in there. But the point is just, they never hear me talk about anything in the past of whatever. I don't give. That doesn't mean nothing, you know. And that's a philosophy. It's the next step you take that counts. It's the very next thing you do. What's next, you know? And so, I mean, this is like a no-brainer for me. You know what I mean? This is easy for me to confront this challenge because we start over every time, you know. And so that's what we're doing now. And so, I mean, we're balling now. Practice is going, you know.
I hear, man.
You know, if you guys remember, I used to get in trouble. I used to get in trouble a little bit, you know, how we practiced, you know, back in the day.
Yeah, I remember some of that.
So,
getting practices.
He didn't practice that much,
practice took away.
Yeah.
Oh, y'all was hitting too hard. We got
had me.
practices.
You remember that morning I was on the phone with the PA trying to argue. Well, we won't tackling, guys. We you know, guys were just competing. You know what I'm saying? Then they took a whole week of our practices away.
I remember that shit.
Yeah, I know. Hey, you know, you guys haven't brought it up yet. And maybe it's not time yet. But how about Dylan McCullough being on the staff here?
Oh. Yeah, the
Sherm's
running back.
Sherm's son.
Yep.
Sherm's son.
Sherm's son, yep.
Because you guys, nobody knows Sherm better than you guys back in the day and all that. But to have this connection with Sherm,
Yeah.
and I mean, Sherm lives through D now. There's the words, the looks, the glances.
Looked.
Hey, Coach, in that vein though, I ain't gonna lie, man. What was it? 14, 15 years in Seattle. Like, I never thought you would coach anywhere else. I ain't gonna even lie to you, bro. Like, in your view, like, what happened? You know what I'm saying? Does a message get run its course after?
Did you and Snide? Did y'all run y'all fair one? Did y'all
they went to VMAC and squared up? That
yeah,
what you
they
saying?
went. Did y'all? You had to go throw hands with him.
Okay, what I would say, let me take you back.
Okay.
How could I have ever left USC? Really? You know, how could I
how
ever
your ass left USC.
Cats getting paid, you know.
NIL.
Before NIL, that's why
The
you left.
creator of the
Look at him.
But okay. But I mean, really, at the time, I couldn't picture coaching anywhere else because we had won so much and had so much fun, you know. But when it happened and I got a call and they started talking about, you know, the chance to do it exactly the way you want to do it and all that kind of stuff, all the control and all of that, it just. And I love the league, you know, college football is great, but I love the league, the way it's formatted and it's the best of the best and all that kind of stuff. And the playoffs and the whole thing, the way it's structured. And so, you know, that happened. Okay. So how could it happen again? Well, let me help you out on this one. First of all, how did I wind up leaving Seattle? Well, there came a time late in that last season, there was about 4 or 5 games to go. And I went into John's office. I said, John, you know, we're coming up the end of the season here. And at the time, we didn't know, you know, how good we were going to do. We were because we won 4 or 5 of the last 6 or something like that. And I said, you know, there's a lot of changes that are coming and potentially, and you and I aren't looking at these changes probably the same way. And because I had guys, I thought we were really close, and I love Bobby and I love Quandre and, you know, and I want, you know, Locke, T-Lock and all the guys. I wanted to keep going with those guys. And I knew that he was, you know, likely thinking differently. He was. And so I said, you know, this might, you know, and I had always been in charge the whole time. And I had always said to John that, you know, when I leave, I'm hoping that I'll be able to help you be the general manager and have this be your gig. And so I said, this may be that time. I said, maybe why don't you talk to ownership and see if you know, if you're sitting in the right spot where they would give you the chance to do that, then maybe it's time for, you know, for us to move it on. And so that was really the conversation.
So you suggested, you suggested that. You came in and suggested a change. I got you.
Yeah, and I didn't want to, you know, I couldn't like quit on the fellas, you know. Yeah. And so it kind of I just had to kind of eat it. You know how it came across. You're asking me still. You didn't know what happened. Mm-hmm. But John and I, we had been partners in this thing, and to me, the head coach general manager thing is by far the most crucial relationship in the NFL, maybe most professional sports. And I always wanted John to be the best GM, you know, in the NFL or in professional sports, and I was going to promote him to be that, and that was the way we were getting married in a sense in this job. And we were going to, you know, nobody would know who's calling the shots or how we did it. It was just going to be the Seattle way, and so it worked, you know, and it worked great for us, and we had a blast doing it. But I kind of had that promise all along that, you know, someday you'll be the guy and I'll be getting out of here. No, it was going to come sometime, and so it just kind of worked out where that was. They were okay about it. And, you know, Jody didn't like the thought of firing me. And so, you know, we worked out a thing where we talked about consulting and that kind of stuff. But as soon as they started going, you know, I couldn't. I mean, it was too creepy for me to be around that building and be close to those guys.
Because they told me you was up there.
Like when Bill Walsh.
All right, I want to pause it there. So much to unpack here because this is a different. We've heard him hint about this, but this is a much more direct and different way of him talking about how things went down. And it's a little bit different than things that I had heard. Okay. First of all, I love the mutual respect and the love that John and Pete have for each other. If some of you younger fans might not even know this, Pete hired John. It was a very unorthodox way of doing it. But when he was hired by Todd Lewicki and the brass with the Seahawks had already whittled their GM searched down to 3 finalists. John obviously was one of them. And then once Pete was hired, he sat in on the next round of interviews and he chose who he wanted to collaborate with as his general manager. It obviously worked. He made the right choice. But it wasn't always perfect. There, like a marriage, right? There was tension along the way. Throughout the years, I have made some connections and contacts and gotten some hint of inside information. And I was told very specifically the year that after Darrell Taylor's rookie year, remember he missed all of it with the rod in his leg, but he had come back and he was practicing the last couple of weeks. He was activated. And they were playing Green Bay in the playoff game, and he still never saw the field, that there was a profanity-laden, heated exchange of John and Pete basically screaming at each other, and John was upset that Darrell Taylor didn't play in that game. Just one small example. Then you fast forward, and some of the things I had heard, and this has been corroborated by other people who have connections and have heard very similar things, that maybe Pete's just being a little bit diplomatic here, and because he respects his friend John, and he didn't want to leave. My understanding of how things went down is there were all those meetings throughout the week, right? It didn't just happen like that. That's why they at one point, if you remember, they postponed his end of the season press conference, usually held on a Tuesday, and they pushed it back to Thursday. That he was sat down and told, look, you have 1 year left on your deal, and John had 2, I think, right? So even when he talks here about like he always wanted John to get a shot to do it himself, that was evident even in the way their contracts were structured. They signed both of their last 2 extensions at roughly the same time, I think within weeks of each other. And John's was for a little bit beyond Pete's. I think through the 2027 draft, if I'm not mistaken. My understanding is that he was told that you can stay, but if it doesn't work this year, if there isn't dramatic improvement on the defense and, the team makes the playoffs, makes a significant run, takes a step forward, that then we're cleaning house, and that means John goes too. And at that point, Pete said, I don't want that. I'm ready to step away. It's time for me to take a break. You guys move forward. I don't want to put that kind of pressure on John. That's my understanding of how that went down. But still, even if it went this way, what tells me that he is just being nice here and being diplomatic, and it wasn't exactly that way, is that the announcement would have been that he was stepping down. The announcement would have been that he's retiring. I just need a break. I'm burned out, whatever. And that was not the way it went down. So I do think Pete is just trying to put a positive spin on this. Before I restart this, because I didn't do it at the beginning, wanted to jump right into it for you guys. I am a full-time content creator, and if you would like to support me in that venture, the best way is by doing what you're doing now, watching the video, listening to the podcast on all the major platforms, but also subscribing or following, depending on the platform, is the best way. By hitting that subscribe button, you let YouTube know you like this channel, and they're going to push it out to more people. Same thing with the like button. And then if you want to be notified anytime I put up new material, which is almost every single day, at least 5-6 days a week, hit that bell button, then you'll be notified. Some of the other ways that you can donate more directly are by buying me a coffee. There's some direct donation links. You can sign up for a paid membership on Patreon or on this channel here. That will give you early access to some material and exclusive material. Like I just posted a breakdown with quarterback coach Bryce Coots, who you also may know from the Hawk Zone Rundown podcast, sharing some of his expertise as we broke down every single interception that Sam Darnold threw last year in Minnesota. You can only get that by being a member, a paid member on YouTube or on Patreon. So go check that out. And once we get into the season, especially with the access that I'm going to get for the first week of training camp and fingers crossed beyond, there will be much, much more exclusive material on both of those outlets. Also check out the merch store and see if you find something you like. All right, let's get back to this.
Bill Walsh did it. He came back at the Niners when I was there, and the last couple of years before George Seifert, left, and it was creepy. I mean, it's just like the old guy. Everybody's walking around corners and they were looking, ducking and dodging.
They told me you was back there creeping around the loading dock. trying to I say,
One time.
Get through this,
I had to fill up my car with my stuff. And so
they were like, hey, I think I seen Pete walking back in the back over there in them bushes.
Should I be afraid?
I was hiding. EK had a big bunch of pile of stuff to put in my car, and I'm starting to load up the car, and out of nowhere, it was middle of the day, and nobody knew I was there, and I see this guy come jogging into the parking lot, and I look over and say, "Yeah, shit, that's a new coach." You know?
Yeah.
Never before, you know. so he comes up, go back. So we had a real nice visit for a couple minutes.
Imagine what that must have been like for McDonald, the way that he describes it. We knew they had that meeting. We just didn't know it went down this way of is that Pete Carroll? What is he doing here? That had to be an odd moment.
That's him. And he's it was classically, it was a nice meeting, but that was it. Then I loaded the car and I was gone, and that was it. Nobody had to know. And I didn't want to, it just would have felt, I didn't need to do that. So anyway, it worked out great, and had a fantastic offseason and did a lot of fun things and watched a lot of football and really got ready. I should be the best I've ever been. That's what I should be right now. And that's what I'm planning on being for these guys and see how far that takes us,
Well, I think the last time I told you thank you was probably after we won the bowl and I was giving you the hug and all that type of stuff on the field.
You was crying.
I was crying my ass off.
Yeah,
all that.
You goddamn
I knew I was done. You know what I'm saying? I knew my football journey was over. You know what I'm saying?
I said, this big old ass crying like a little broad.
We talk about this. Pete, don't give him that energy, man. You know what I'm saying? We talk about this on the pod.
Yeah, somebody
we talk about this on the pod a lot about when Beast came to us in Seattle in 2010. Could you just give us the background behind that? I heard, you were chasing him for a while, trying to get him a while. And why him? Like, what about this?
I'm just going to predict this right now. He'll give Schneider credit for this. John was pretty adamant and had been on the Bills for quite a while to make a deal.
No, we not gonna make this.
What about him?
He got somebody over there in the backfield right now.
I know I'm gonna get there, but it starts here. Let me do my journalism.
Oh, this is you setting up plays.
You got a role. You guys got roles to play.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So here's the deal. It goes way back to recruiting. Knowing Marshawn during the recruiting process, and we wound up not getting together. I don't know. Did you ever visit, Sean? I don't think you visited us, did you?
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, and so, but I knew he was out there and all that, and we had a great year recruiting running backs that year, and then we played against him, and so I got to see what it was like playing against him. So I felt like I knew him well, driving the golf cart and all that stuff. That didn't matter to me, and going to Buffalo and getting in trouble with guns in his suitcase or something. I don't know what the heck that was.
He knew your whole thing,
bro.
Hey man, we don't talk about Bruno.
I was just telling you, that didn't bother me one bit. I knew who he was and what he stood for as best I could from afar. And going into this new program that we had nothing at the time. We were just getting started, and I wanted to have somebody that that could make a statement with the way he played, and particularly involved in the running games. Like Cable was, I got Alex Gibbs. You don't remember this, Marshawn, but we hired Alex Gibbs to be the line coach, and he quit. He quit on Monday of the first week of the season. He quit. And anyway, so
because he was sick, right? He didn't live that much longer after that. I think that's how it went down.
So the next thing was to get Caves to come in, but I wanted a mentality and I wanted a symbol, and really I thought, and we tried to trade for him for 3 months. I kept John, call again. Just keep calling, keep calling. I don't even, what did you want? I don't know. We don't even talk about what the compensation was, but eventually they said, okay. And so we got him. And from the moment he got there, he was very suspecting of me. I thought he didn't know what the heck he was getting into, but I was in love.
It's so funny how that relationship worked out, because I can imagine that when that trade was made, Marshawn probably thought, man, I got to go play for this old dude. But you can see now, maybe in this interview as much as any that I've ever watched with Coach Carroll, how he can relate to the modern player. Like, he's 72 going on 32. Like, he's just, Southern California upbringing, all that. He's just chill and cool, and he can converse with anyone no matter what their background, what their style is. it's one of his superpowers for sure.
Love it. The guy coming to our program from the very, very beginning, and that's why you talk about competing to get you out of Buffalo was it was a long ass haul, but it was worth every minute of it. And
he changed the culture. Marshawn Lynch might have been the biggest single move to change the culture and the identity of this team, not just on offense, but on defense too. Just like to bring that mentality of running through a brick wall. I remember one of his first games, it might have been his first game. It was on the road at Chicago, and he couldn't get anything going, but he had some of the most impressive 1 yard and no gain runs in that game I've ever seen. Just never giving up, taking on contact, reversing field, throwing guys off of himself just to try to get something going. I knew that first week, like, this is going to work somehow, some way. Like, they need to improve up front. But this guy, he just willed his way to greatness.
And so that's what happened. And then the rest of it was just let him be him, and which I'll say it in front of him. It's a marvelous thing, and it's shown me how, and I've talked about it for years, about finding what is so extraordinarily unique about each person and let that bring it to the front. And Marshawn was always in the back of my mind because he's an amazing individual. And and I'm not talking about all the crazy stuff. I'm talking about the effect you have on people and the effect of them responding to you. And as long as you and I were okay, everything was going to be fine. And so I was going to make it okay. It wasn't I was going to make that relationship successful.
He's not saying these words, but he's saying it. It wasn't easy. It wasn't always easy. Marshawn was a pain in the ass to coach. And there are times that I'm sure he frustrated the heck out of Pete Carroll. And he's expressing that now. But the end result, right? The sum of the parts was worth it. It was worth getting through. And what makes Pete so great as a teacher, as a manager, as a coach, as a leader is to recognize that. And because there are a lot of coaches in this league that just would not have tolerated some of the crap that Marshawn wanted to pull and would have traded him, gotten rid of him, cut him. But Pete saw the greatness and saw that, yeah, it might take a little more work, but it's going to be worth it in the end. Man, it was.
I eventually found out that I kind of fell in love with you, but it took a while. But here was the deal, and I'm talking to Mike now. The deal was, I love Marshawn, and I didn't care what he did. I didn't care. He couldn't do wrong by me, and he never did. He never did. And he just did Marshawn, and which I thought was an amazing, incredible gift. And I love you to this day for all of the things you've continued to do, because your heart people don't realize how big your heart is and how much important it is for family and how important it is to take care of those that need you and all that. And so you really have never been any different in my mind from the time I first met you and got to know you. But I'm one of your great cheerleaders because I love what you do and all that. And not everybody can see the beauty, but I know I can. And so we didn't have to make up. It was just like, come on, let's go do this. And I'll be darned if didn't you score a touchdown or something in the first game back or something like that?
Yeah.
Dude,
every game.
Think you did. I think.
Every game.
Anyway, so
every game.
Every game. It was like 3 games or something like that. 3 games in a row or something like that.
Yeah, 4 touchdowns.
Whatever it was. It worked out awesome, and maybe nobody could see why or they couldn't figure it out, but they didn't have to. I didn't get. I just want to do it again with you and have fun doing it and help.
They just had to bleep Pete.
And so anyway, it's a good story.
We gonna edit all of that.
Why you gonna edit it? Because I was gonna ask him some more about you.
No, man, we
more?
ain't supposed to be talking about me. This is
part of the guy, dog.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This is you too, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Well, in that same vein, Coach, you got a hell of a back now. You drafted one in the first round. I called his game against Oregon this past year.
Oh, this is where it kind of just like hurts my heart a little bit. Like for a second, I forgot that he's the Raiders head coach. And when Mike just asked that question, I thought, he's talking about Kenneth Walker? Oh, that's right. He's talking about Ashton Genty because he's with the Raiders. It was time. I haven't said this yet in this show, but it bears repeating. Like if you're new to me, if you haven't watched me, if you didn't watch me through the whole process of the coaching change, 100% it was the right thing to do at the right time. A change was needed. I think Mike McDonald was the absolute greatest hire. I think that's going to bear fruit over the next couple of decades. Like, that's how I feel about him. I'm happy as hell that Pete ended up with the Raiders. I think it's a perfect situation for him. I'm glad he got another coaching opportunity, but it was the right time.
I saw him running away from the defensive backs, man. Like, talk about Genty and, you know, possibly how maybe he compares to this guy, right? He's been on the show before and he's spoken some great things about beast mode, but just talk about your back and how he compares.
I love the fact that you guys have already started a relationship and that's already ongoing. You know, and that asks you guys too. If you've watched him enough, there's something about his style that is reminiscent of some other great backs. He has an ability to use the force of the tackler, and he goes with the force, and he glances and bounces. Like,
I get when I watch Ashton Genty run, I get some LaDainian Tomlinson from him.
But you would do it to gain force where you wanted to go. He's got that, I think, and I watched everything as much as I could because I was trying to determine, does he have the special? You know, does he have that knack, that sense? Emmett, you know, and Barry and Sean, they had that sense. It's almost like a martial art kind of, you know, using the other person's power to your advantage. So I'm thrilled that he's on our team, and I hope that we can really, you know, bring him into the light for everybody to see. So it'd be fun.
Could it have worked out any better for Pete to come back into the league, right? To get to a team that has an elite player like Max Crosby. And, you know, hopefully Christian Wilkins will get healthy down there too. I don't know what's going on with that, but that would be great to see those two thrive together. And then to be in a position to be able to reach out and get Geno, and I cheated a little bit. I looked at the next segment. It looks like they're going to talk about that. And then to have an owner that's flush with cash because of the move to the Raiders and they have cap space and everything else. And then to be in a position to draft a generational running back because we know how much Pete loves to run the football. It's going to be a lot of fun watching the Raiders this year.
He's a good kid. Definitely. You know, I got to stay on him though. You know, the first couple of days of practice, you know, he was kind of cruising, and I said, "Hey, wait a minute now. If you're going to be the dude, you got to do something. You got to be special, and you need to show these guys that you're special. And the best way during this time of year is to do it with your effort. Make sure that you're busting your ass and you're running out to make those guys chase you. You know, and he responded right away and took off and sent a message. You know, that he's willing to kind of take this, you know, this load and this opportunity and do something with it. So we'll see. We need to keep coaching him up. We ain't done. He's just a pup.
Yeah, man. Let that man get in his stand straight up, coach. You know what I'm saying? Let him see. He's short. You know that, right? He got to be able to see.
I didn't tell him not to. I didn't tell him that happened to he and his coach. So they're working something out. So.
They working something out.
All right. Could you talk to us about how important it was to have Geno there in the fold?
Yeah.
Here we go.
I'm a Geno, coach. Great job bringing him with you. Great job paying him. Just talk about Geno and how much further along you've been because you have a guy that you know.
Bring everybody about that building.
I know. Remember, DK wanted to go.
He tried to get everybody about that building. He tried to have the Oakland Seahawks.
The Oakland Seahawks, bro. They everywhere.
Yeah.
Vegas.
Yeah. No, I was working that. Well,
I'm still
the Geno to me is like getting Marshawn. You know, to me.
Come on, say more. How many other guys did he try to get? I'm actually surprised Tyler didn't sign there. I really am. They need receiver help. Like, they're really hurting there. I thought he would have been, you know, a great wide receiver 3 for them, even if he didn't contribute a whole lot on the field, just to kind of help, you know, establish the culture. I was surprised that didn't go down.
To me, it's like that because there's the connection of the impact that the guy can have on everybody else. Geno, you know, the years we spent together, the years when he wasn't playing were the most significant years to me because he exemplified this mentality that I had never seen in anybody else. So I really would tell you that he thought every play he was going to be in. And somehow he held on to that kind of focus.
Wow.
It wasn't, he didn't ever lose it. He didn't ever waver. Every play that the other guy was taking, it might be his last play and he might be ready and he needs to be ready to go. And, you know, he'd been through some pain and some hardship and stuff like that. But by the time we got him, he came with this mentality that, anyway, so when he finally got a chance, he did great. and a lot of people were surprised. Shoot, he was comeback player of the year, the first year that he started and all that after Russell left. And it was just, so to get him to come too was, oh man, it's just so significant because he's awesome. He's awesome every day, first guy on, last guy off. Yeah. It's just sizzling in practice, great throws every day. And he got the little skinny legs, I keep hitting him with, hey, did they arrest the guy? And he says, which guy? The guy that stole your calves? But anyway, but he's just done everything you could hope for. And with Max is such a significant leader on the defensive side that those two guys, and they've just joined up together, collectively to give us something that's really, really powerful. So, okay, that's a good start. That's a really good start, so now the rest of it has to come together.
You mentioned his name, but I just got to ask, you and Russ good, Coach?
Say it again?
There's more of his journey.
You and Russell good?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
I just got to throw it out there.
We're doing fine. Like I told you guys, I stay in contact with the guys.
Okay.
And as best I can. And so, Russ was one to call you. And so, I've heard a lot from him and I stayed in contact with him throughout with the same thought, just trying to help him, just trying to help him through. Geno and I were talking during this last year too, and just trying to help and be there for him and continue to support him because nobody knows those guys as well as I do, and so if I could be there for him or answer some questions or kick him in the butt or whatever, and really, there was a chance that, that with Russ coming up in free agency that, we need a quarterback. So there was conversation, in that short amount of time there before we got Geno that, who knows, there could be a shot. So
reunited. And
that was something I hadn't heard before. And actually it dismissed because obviously when Pete got the job there, everyone knew Russ was going to be a free agent. I think by the end of the season, there was an understanding he wasn't going to re-sign in Pittsburgh. I just didn't think it was going to happen. I thought they'd go a different direction. I actually like Aiden O'Connell. But I thought they would do something else. I honestly, ironically, it'd be interesting to see how this might have worked out. I didn't think Geno was going anywhere. I thought they'd re-sign him, do an extension. He would stay here. And I thought Sam Darnold was going to be a Raider. And I wonder if John had said, no, I'm not trading him. We're going to work something out. We're going to get something done. If that would have been the move, because there were the reports back in, 2020 or 2021, when there were first discussions about possibly Russ being traded. There was the rumored trade deal that was worked out with the Chicago Bears that Pete vetoed the year before he actually was traded. And then Jay Glazer had the report that Pete loved Sam Darnold and the Jets were getting ready to move on from him. If he was available, that would be where they would pivot if they traded Russ. So I thought that's how it was going to work out. And maybe that would have been their plan B if they couldn't have gotten Geno. I think that would have made the most sense. And Darnold would be with the Raiders now.
And it feels so good, huh? Y'all was about to be reunited, huh?
Yeah.
I love it, man. You got to get.
Hey, you guys might be able to carry out a couple yourselves. You might be able to get out there and just the two of you. You lead them up through a little lead play or something.
Oh no, Beast Mode could do it. I don't have the size no more, Coach. I don't want no parts of it.
Hell no. I went through one of the
don't worry about the size. It's the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight.
You're right.
Dog,
and I remember our conversation
when they were saying you were soft.
No, when Jeff Albrecht called me when he was my homie, but you was in his office. So I was talking to Jeff and you were telling me, look, man, I just need a fullback to block a half of a guy. That's it. I never forgot that, Coach. You know what I'm saying? I even teach up other fullback. What you saying, man?
Nothing.
You trying to say I was sorry?
I wasn't trying to say you were soft. Huh? I just was listening to what the coaches was saying.
Oh, there you go.
Man, I know I'm going to get got.
This the Get Got pod, right? And, obviously, y'all were playing Philly a few years, some years back.
Philly?
It was Philly because I drove up there. And me and Beast Mode had an interview, and he famously said, everybody going to get got. I'm just going to get mine more often than I get got. You know what I'm saying? And so we always ask our guests, do they have a get got story? Now, I know you got a lot of stories, and I'm sure you've gotten got a few times in your life. You know what I'm saying? Do you have a great get got story that you could share with us on the pod today?
Or when you got somebody.
Or when you got somebody.
Because you got 275 transactions.
Yeah,
that
bro.
first year.
Yeah, you cut a lot of people.
So I know it's a lot of them.
Lendale White. He might not bring this up, but he got Lendale White. You remember that? Like, this is when we kind of knew that. I remember Jeff Chadia. Is that how you pronounce his name, from ESPN? He's been there a long time. If you remember the editorial he came out with after Pete was hired about what a disaster it was going to be. It was a terrible decision. He was a raw coach. That shit's not going to happen in the NFL. And then he brings Lendale White in, and like within the first week cuts him because I think he was late to a couple of meetings or practice or something like that. Like, you talk about establishing an identity and a culture, right? Like, he got Lendale White.
He thinking about
you
this.
know, there's a lot of opportunities to get got. And,
Damn right.
and it's happened to me enough times. And I always like the other guys to learn the hard way. I hate learning the hard way, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know that there's anything anyone particular. You know, there's some really significant things that happened, and I mean, you guys can kind of mark them. You know, it's getting to Seattle, getting back to the NFL and having a chance to prove it. You know, that what we were doing at SC all those years could be accepted. Because when I went into Seattle, I didn't know. You know, I wasn't sure. I kind of did, but I was unsure that the league would take to us having so much fun and enjoying the stuff that we do and caring for people the way we wanted to care for them and all that. And then I learned how to do it even more, you know, in the time we were there. But that was a big opportunity. I love the NFL, you know, and I was there for 17 years, and then I went back to college, you know, and you know, for another, you know, whatever, all those years, and then then came back. So it was always getting back to. But it's the real one is still out there. The real one's still out there.
The real one's still out
You know?
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go do this one more time. And get it done again.
We were garbage in 2010, though, Coach. You know that, right? We weren't that good in 20. We won a playoff game, but we weren't that good. You know what I'm saying? As a team standpoint, we went to the playoffs. We won a game.
I'm just saying.
You know what I'm saying? We scrapped. You know what I'm saying? But we weren't that good. We won 7 games.
That was your first playoff game, too.
My first playoff game.
That was my first
Remember
playoff
after the
game.
Tampa game on the plane, you came in the back and said, all right, guys, I know we just got our ass whipped. Don't look at the film. There's a championship opportunity next week. We get to play the Rams for the division. You know what I'm saying? And we got excited. Charlie Whitehurst went out there and won. Last one, I know I said.
Wasn't that Tampa game that Hasselbeck pulled his butt muscle or something, scoring
Yes.
touchdowns? Like that?
Yes, I actually got a first down on the quarterback sneak that game, man. You know what I'm saying? We did a little wildcat action. I remember that, man. We won the division with 7 wins, man. What's your thoughts on possible, you know, you still think the division winner should be the guy
I wasn't voting for that other rule. You know, I was voting for the division winning. I just like the structure. Smart, you know, I'm old fashioned about it, maybe, but whatever. But I like the structure, and I like the championship within the championship. You know, that's just part of it. Remember, I always said, you know, own the NFC West was our deal, and own the AFC West is what it is now. And if you do that, now you set up for the next, you know, the next cycle of championship run, and so. I like that. Remember what we did with it? Remember the freaking game? Nobody would ever have thought they're saying, "Oh, this is the worst matchup in the history of the NFL, and we're going to get murdered." And all.
And Coach, I remember the whole.
We didn't even. It wasn't even close to getting murdered. We freaking won going away.
No, bro. I remember that week. Coach was saying, "Dude, they played 3 games in like 15 days or something like that." They're gonna come into a buzzsaw when they walk up in here. Yeah. And we went out there and we beat that ass, man. Coach Carroll, thank you for.
Everybody remembers that game for what that guy on the right side of your screen did, the Beastquake run, obviously. But go back and check the numbers of the day that Matt Hasselbeck had in that game. One of his best performances ever. A week after tearing his butt, or 2 weeks after tearing his butt. Probably went out there and played well because Pete gave him crap for tearing his butt.
Coming by to get got today, man.
All right, so that's that. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And fingers crossed. Like I was originally going to do this as a live so that we could all react together. But then at the last minute, I got concerned about potential copyright issues if I did that. So I don't know. YouTube's been funky lately when it comes to that. But if you're watching on the live premiere, thank you for being here. And that was a fun discussion, wasn't it? projecting myself into the future here. But that was cool. I thought the best moments for me, I always loved listening to Pete talk about his philosophy and just how he builds things and structures things and how he's always striving to be better. He's never satisfied with where he is, even with everything he accomplished. One of only 3 coaches to win a national championship and a Super Bowl, and 72, 73 years old, more money in the bank that he could ever spend probably than just, right off into the sunset. Enjoy time with Glenna. But his drive and his passion to get back into it again and to still think that he has more in the tank and that he can do it differently and that he can do it better is inspiring for me as a guy, as I mentioned, who's only getting older. And yet here I am embarking on something new this year. And I feel like it's tip of the iceberg. I think that's a mentality you have to achieve greatness. So always love hearing him talk about that. I thought some of the things he said, dropped a little bomb about how he and Earl Thomas are not on great terms these days. I really hope that gets fixed, and I think it will at some point. Marshawn's little nugget about how he tried to make it the Vegas Seahawks and bring a bunch of guys down there. Like, I wonder how deep that extends. Or it might have been a little hyperbolic. He might have been exaggerating a little bit there. But certainly, Mike mentioned that he, tried to get DK too, So I thought that was really fascinating. I wish Pete all the best. It's an AFC team. Like, don't have to worry about him. It's going to be a fun preseason game having him back up here. Hopefully, if I get fully credentialed, I'll be able to be in that press conference at the end of the game and everything and talk to Pete. One of the few people in that organization I never really had a chance to meet. Like, I ran into him a couple of times at social events or things that El Gaucho was putting on when I worked for them. Like, had a couple of moments brushing up against him or whatever, like, hey, coach, or him just acknowledging me in whatever role I was working that day. But never really got a chance to chat with him. So that's unfortunate. But I wish him all the best. I put him on my Seahawks Mount Rushmore a month or so ago when I did that episode when nobody else was thinking in terms of coaches. And so I did take some grief for that. But we aren't sitting here today talking about the possibilities that this roster might be able to achieve if it wasn't for Pete Carroll. We wouldn't have a Super Bowl trophy most likely if it wasn't for Pete Carroll. And yeah, should we have had 2? Yes, but he led one of the greatest teams that the league has ever seen over a 2 or 3 year period. Just a dominant team. They only have one championship to show for it, but they also have a legacy and they have an identity and an attitude, and that all came from Pete Carroll because they were the opposite of that before he took over. It was a lifeless, identityless, soft team before he came along and changed it. So that was fun. Thanks again to everyone for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you would. Check all the different ways that you can support me down below. I will be heading back. I'm taking off right now anyway, the tentative plan is I'm taking off the 13th, so I'm going to be driving for 4 straight days to get from here to Seattle. Mapped it all out the other day. I'm going to be staying in Iowa City, Rapid City, Missoula. Never been to 2 of those 3 cities. Lived in Missoula for a little bit when I was a kid, and then back home in time to get settled before training camp starts. So if you have any suggestions, I'm not going to have a lot of time for sightseeing, but just suggestions of things to see along that route, I'll take those. It's going to be 10 hours of driving. I will tell you this, though, a little hint. I'm going to be producing content every day. My thought right now, tell me what you think, give me some ideas if you want, is I'm just going to kind of at the end of every day check into the hotel room, whatever, unwind, and I'll have shot stuff throughout the day and just kind of sort of documenting my travels. And then just whatever random football or Seahawk thoughts pop into my head. I'll be driving through some other NFL markets, certainly. It'll bring memories back. None of that will be posted as monetized. It'll just be for fun. But there will be opportunities to contribute if you'd like. So anyway, at Seahawks Forever on Twitter. Forever and always, go Hawks. Thanks for watching, you guys. We'll see you next time.